Hey guys, I just wanted to give you guys an overview of the class and what all it entails, what you're going to be learning and stuff. So, obviously, it's a finance class, and I want you to understand the financial world, okay? Um, everybody thinks stock market when they hear finance, right? And it goes way beyond that. You get into banking and everything. And I want to keep this a very engaged class. I want to keep it small, maybe 10 people or less. I want you to feel free to, hey, I don't understand that, can you cover this more, or what about this, and ask those questions and have open discussion. Um, one of the main things I want to cover is cycles and understanding cycles. In the West, we don't talk about cycles a whole lot. But historically, like even the Egyptians, Aztecs, and the East, like they operate with the understanding of cycles and historical cycles. History repeats. We've all heard that. But most people don't understand that it actually happens in a fairly structured cyclical time frames, right? And there's different cycles. So here on this chart, you see there's 250-year revolutionary cycle. There's 80 to 100-year economic cycle where there's big downturns. Okay, that would be like the last time was the Great Depression. And so I want to frame where we're at in history, and it's no crystal ball. Okay, I can't tell you, okay, the World War III is starting 3 weeks from now, get prepared. Like, I don't know that. Might not be World War III. Another one that I want to cover is just the history of money and who all the big players are. Okay, where did money come from? What was it? How did it, transform? And then more importantly, who are the big players now? We've got the Fed, the ECB, the International Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Forum. Right? You may or may not have heard of all these, but you need to have a base understanding of who they are and what they do. And what I keep finding is there is terms that we hear every day, and so everybody just hearing them all the time believes they understand what they are. So terms like money. Well, obviously, we know what money is, right? Well, not so fast. Taxes. We all know that taxes are used for infrastructure. Paying cops, that's how the government operates, paying for the military, it's all through taxes, right? Well, actually, in 1945, that all changed, and most of our taxes actually don't go for any of that. Bonds, people hear about bonds and what they are and what they're good for. And we'll talk about, how they work and how they've actually changed the whole entire system ever since the Civil War in the U.S. Inflation, that's kind of a catchphrase recently. Oh, due to inflation, this, that, or the other. And so we'll discuss, like, what is inflation? What's it mean? How does it change your life? Deflation, like, can't possibly have deflation, right? Well, not so fast. Maybe we can. What is it? How does it affect you? Velocity of money. Stock market. Like, we all hear about the stock market. We've seen charts, fancy charts, and then there's some guy in a suit that's made millions of dollars or billions of dollars, right? And it's kind of this big mysterious thing for a lot of people. And so it's like, well, I'll just hire an expert and let him deal with it and stuff. And then there's some other catchphrases like shorting the stock, right? That was a recent one. And so we'll talk about what do these mean, you know? The big question, right? This is the one that probably most people are searching for, is where should I put my money? I got a buddy that says real estate, you can't go wrong. It never goes down. Like, it's always gone up. Some other guys saying gold. Some guy, I heard of a guy that made $1 billion buying Bitcoin. The fine art market goes up 15% a year, or bonds. Gotta go bonds. and stuff for volatility. It's like, well, what all these terms mean and why would I invest in them? Okay. It's very pat to say, oh, like you should just invest in this. It's like, no, each one of these has pros and cons. So I want you to understand what the pros and cons are of each and how to use them, right? You take your car to the mechanic, you don't expect him to only use a hammer. He might use a hammer or he might use a wrench. Okay, you use different tools for different times. So I want you to understand the tools. This one is one that is missed by very, very many. So the Federal Reserve System and the banks, right? You think like, oh, this guy's a finance expert. Like, what I'm finding is very few people understand the banking system. And those that do generally are super wealthy, or they're very high up, or they're just some super nerd, one or the other. I believe that if you understand the banking system, then you can use that to your advantage for the future. And I think it'll actually be very important. Like the Federal Reserve, okay, everybody's like, oh yeah, they're the guys that print the money for the US, right? And that's why we got inflation, because they've been printing too much. Well, most people don't understand that you actually print the money. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but in the class, I'll explain how and why and how that system works. And I think it's fundamental. Like I touched on earlier, there's different times in history and there's different things going on. So you need to understand that, okay, what do I do during inflation? What do I do during deflation? Okay, tomorrow war breaks out. How are you going to invest? What should you be looking at? Okay, war's over, or it never happened, or whatever, right? It's peaceful, like world settles down, everything's calm. How do you invest? And so I want you to get a broad understanding of these things, not so much that you need to become the next Warren Buffett, but so that you can make intelligent decisions on, a financial advisor. What I've been finding is there's a lot of financial advisors that don't know what they're actually talking about. Okay. So it's like hiring somebody to build your house, right? To be the architect. And you go up to them like, oh yeah, they show you all these fancy blueprints and, they talk about how great, and here's this building that I've built and blah, blah, blah. So they build the building, they design it, and then it falls down, and you go back and you're like, hey dude, what happened? And they're like, well, sorry. And you're like, no, sorry doesn't cut it. What do you mean? I thought you were an expert. They're like, oh dude, as a kid I played with Lincoln logs like all the time, and I built some really impressive Lincoln log houses. So it's the same thing, right? Like, it's just wood and how you assemble it. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. In fact, a lot of financial advisors will tell you, well, I can't control the stock market. So if you lose a bunch of money, like, that's fine. Just keep putting in and stuff. And it's not my fault and stuff because I can't control the world. It's like, well, you can't control the world, but you can control where you invest. So those are what I want you to get out of this class. Anyhow, like I said, I want to keep it small, keep it user friendly, not get too in the weeds, but give you a good understanding of the system. If that's something you're interested in, just let me know, message me, and we'll get it all set up. Anyhow, thanks guys.